Coming up on Network Africa. Dozens of bodies found in river between Ethiopia's Tigray and Sudan. Kenya bars deputy president from private visit to Uganda. Plus, Morocco tightens restrictions as COVID-19 cases rise. Hello and a warm welcome to the program. I'm Teniola Shoboale. We begin in Ethiopia, where dozens of bodies have washed up on a river that marks the border between Ethiopia and Sudan. Residents on the Sudanese side say some of the bodies had gunshot wounds and others had their hands bound. The Setit River, which in Ethiopia is known as the Tekeze, flows through the conflict-hit northern region, that's of Tigray, where Ethiopian forces and allied fighters have been battling with Tigray rebels. A health worker who fled to Sudan to escape the fighting says that he had buried 10 bodies over the past week. The fighting in Tigray began in November between the regional power, the Tigray People's Liberation Front, and the federal government. The 9-month war has caused a massive humanitarian crisis, with millions forced from their homes and hundreds of thousands facing famine conditions. Elsewhere in East Africa, Kenya's Deputy President William Ruto was set for a private trip from Kenya to neighboring Uganda the second time in a month. But he was stopped by the immigration officers at the airport on Monday. William Ruto was set to attend to private matters when the immigration officers said he needed to get clearance from the government. Recently, he has had a frosty relationship with government officials. Kenya's President Uhuru Kenyatta has in the past accused his deputy of aimlessly traversing the country. VOA correspondent Mohammed Yusuf joins us now for more on this. Mohammed, just explain to us what exactly happened on Monday. And has the government given any reasons why this happened?
Yes.
Well, it seems we're having some difficulties with the connections with Mohammed. We will try and reconnect, but in the meantime, let's take a look at some other stories. The UK government has reiterated its stance against cruel, inhumane and degrading treatment and punishment in response to a report by UN investigators into the treatment of Kenyans by the British colonial authorities in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The report, which was made public on Monday, highlighted the horrific abuses people in a part of western Kenya, now Kericho County, were subjected to. The authors had handed it over at the end of May and gave the UK authorities 60 days to respond. There's not yet been a response, and the UN investigators said they were disappointed that there was no apology for what had happened and no move for compensation. And our Nigeria's Consul General in South Africa is looking to the Nigerian government and citizens who can to help support those who lost their businesses in the recent civil unrest in South Africa. Nigerians are among the many business owners in South Africa struggling to pick up the pieces after nearly 2 weeks of violent looting and attacks on businesses and other establishments in Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal provinces. Although the South African government has set aside 3.9 billion rand to support these small and medium-scale businesses, many foreign-owned businesses are worried that help will still be far from them. Our South Africa Bureau Chief, Betty Dibia, reports.
As South Africa counts the cost of the many days of looting and arson attacks on several businesses in 2 provinces in the country, many who are still worried about where to go or what to do next are some of the small and medium-sized owned businesses, especially those owned by foreign nationals. Here we're in Denver, an industrial area in Johannesburg, where we're here to see what is left of L&K auto panel beaters, owned by a 46-year-old Nigerian, Lukman Alade, who said he lost close to 9 million rand in looted property and then in the arson attack.
I just got a call around 1 o'clock in the midnight that, hey, my son been looting. So I came out. When I came here, I saw that it's not only looting, there's a fire. And they burned all the car inside here, almost 54 cars. So that's what we see that day.
Lukman Alade is just one of the many affected Nigerian business owners. In KwaZulu-Natal, the second affected province, the stories are no less heartbreaking.
That suffered it cuts across all nationals, not just Nigerians. Many Nigerians lost their businesses. They were burnt down, some in exchange businesses. A very pitiable case, again, is a certain Nigerian, interestingly married to an Indian South African. He did not only run the business, but also ran some kind of like a mini warehouse where some of the hawkers on the street will come store things in his place. So all those warehouse, all those things that they came to keep in his place overnight, they took this they took every day. They took everything, destroyed his own businesses, his own wares, and everything that he was doing. And those people are insisting that he must also restore their goods.
Armed with a list of Nigerian businesses either looted and burnt or just looted, Nigeria's Consul General in Johannesburg, Abdulmalik Ahmed, is reaching out for help on their behalf.
So we call upon the Nigerian government and well-meaning Nigerians to come to their aid. You know, the records we have are actually conservative because most of them were not even willing to divulge, you know, their losses because of their frustration. They said even if they did, nobody's going to come to their aid. But we continue to reassure them that, you know, we're going to prevail and present their case to government, the appropriate quarters.
But here in South Africa, 3.9 billion rand has been set aside to help. And government says foreign and locally owned businesses would be helped if they meet conditions.
We are looking at providing what we call blended finance, which is 60% grant and then 40% loan. We try to make the requirements very, very simple, but we have to make sure that we are also still compliant with SARS. We are engaging with SARS. We want to make sure that we also have businesses that are formalized because we cannot support people who don't want to be known because we have to account at the end of the day because we're utilizing taxpayers' money.
Lukman Alade confirms he's been reached somewhat.
Yeah, they came here, they gave us some form to fill, like claim something, so we're still expecting them. We don't know what's going to happen, you know, but we can't wait for them. We just need to move forward to start doing our job back.
Whether help will eventually come, many remain hopeful. For now, Lukman is literally picking up the pieces of what's left of his business to start again at a totally different location, armed with only hope and his 14-year-old daughter's words.
Well, that thing happened that day when I'm about to give up. It's my daughter just told me, no, Daddy, don't worry, you will do it again.
From Denver, Johannesburg, South Africa, Betty Dibia, Channels Television News.
In North Africa, more than 580 MPs have been sworn in as a newly formed parliament in South Sudan met for the first time on Monday. The assembly has been convened nearly a year later than planned and remains incomplete. Dozens of lawmakers did not attend the ceremony due to political squabbles. The creation of a legislature made up of delegates from the governing party and former rebel groups was a key condition of a ceasefire agreed in 2018, but concerns about democratic freedoms in the country remains. Activists say 2 prominent campaigners were arrested on Monday and an independent think tank shut down. And over in Tanzania, Defense Minister Elias Kwandikwa has died while being treated in Dar es Salaam. Mr. Kwandikwa had been in hospital for 14 days. The MP Secretary, Julius Lugobi, confirmed his death. President Samia Suluhu Hassan said she was saddened by the minister's death because of his significant contribution to public service. Some updates on the COVID-19 pandemic now. Tanzanians have started receiving their COVID jabs as a nationwide campaign gets underway. The country, which is facing a third wave of the pandemic, has received 1 million doses of the single jab Johnson & Johnson vaccine from the U.S. under the COVAX scheme. President Samia Suluhu Hassan, who got her injection last week, said Tanzania has placed another order for the vaccine through the African Union as part of its plan to initially target more than 60% of the population. The start of this campaign comes at a time when the public opinion is divided over the safety of the vaccines. President Samia, who has shifted the country away from the COVID-19 skepticism of her predecessor, has urged Tanzania to come out and get the jab. And in Morocco, the government has introduced new coronavirus restrictions, including a nighttime curfew as infection rates rise. The Prime Minister's office says the curfew would begin tonight and would last from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. Interstate travel is also banned, except for those who have a vaccination passport or are traveling for medical emergencies. Morocco, along with other countries in North Africa, has seen an alarming rise in COVID-19 infections, mainly from the Delta variant, in the past few weeks. Well, let's head back to Kenya now, where the Deputy President, William Ruto, has been barred from traveling to Uganda. Here we have VOA correspondent Mohammed Yusuf back with us. Mohammed, I hope the network is better now. Just give us an update of what exactly happened on Monday. And has the government given any reasons why the Deputy President was barred from traveling to Uganda?
Yeah, it was on Monday, some minutes after 12 noon. That's when the deputy president actually went to the airport with 6 others, including 3 members of parliament. And when he got there, basically, the government officials, the migration officials told him that you don't have clearance. You need to seek that clearance. That's what some of his people with him actually are saying. But there hasn't been any clarification or any word from the government so far. And that's what so far we know for the moment. We just know from the deputy president apart what really happened. But nothing is really coming out from the government side. But what we do know is that they told him to seek permission from the government, and he didn't seek that. And so for him to travel to Kampala, Uganda, he needs that clearance.
Well, do we know what his motives for this trip was? I mean, he just visited the country last month.
Yeah, that is the question. And before even visiting last month, what we do know that in 2015, previous election before the last election early this year, he was actually in Uganda campaigning for President Museveni. And so you can imagine that kind of close relationship when a leader from another country can come into a country and campaign for you. And that was back in 2015 when Jubilee, the ruling party, Jubilee, the Kenyatta and the Ruto were having good relationship, and they had also a good relationship with the Museveni. But since then, things haven't been working quite well. But what we know so far is that he usually visits Uganda, and this is not the first time. And he was visiting as a private citizen. He was just going to attend on his private issues, not government issues.
You know, that brotherly relationship the president and his deputy had at the beginning of their time in office in 2013, has gone sour now. Any idea as to, the reason behind this?
Yeah, this is actually, many of your viewers or many people in Africa are quite aware that we had problems in 2017 election. The first election in August, it was nullified by the Supreme Court, and a month later, 2 months later, another election was organized. The opposition boycotted that election, and the Kenyatta and Ruto went in and they won that election. And then a few months later, actually, March in 2018, we saw that former Prime Minister Raila Odinga shook hands with Kenyatta and agreed to work together. And that was the beginning of all these relationship, not so good relationship between the two leaders. And and basically some of people within the President Kenyatta on the side, they were saying, this guy has started an early campaign. He's been crisscrossing the country immediately after they were sworn in. And that hasn't been going well between the two leaders or between the two camps.
All right, then, VOA correspondent Mohammed Yusuf, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Pleasure.
So to come on the program. Well, in what he describes as an act of love, a Senegalese man dresses as his girlfriend to sit an exam. More details in a moment. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. In North Africa, Tunisia's labor union has urged the president to rapidly announce a new government 9 days after he seized executive control in a move his opponents called a coup. President Kais Saied has defended his actions as constitutional and says he will govern alongside a new prime minister during an emergency period. But 9 days after his intervention, no name has been mentioned. In Tunis, traders say economic woes set stage for the current political crisis.
In the tourist bazaar in the old city of Tunis, embroidered scarves, clay pots and ornaments are on display, but few people are browsing, reflecting the misfortunes that have afflicted Tunisia's vital tourist industry for years. The inactivity highlights the economic stagnation that has soured many Tunisians on democracy, setting the stage for the country's worst political crisis since a popular uprising toppled veteran autocrat Zine El Abidine a decade ago.
After 10 years, people were patient until this explosion came, and this was expected. I saw it coming, and I thought it would happen sooner.
Many chart the start of the economic troubles to the 2011 revolt, which ignited a wave of uprisings known as the Arab Spring. In 2019, Tunisia seemed to reclaim its status, attracting a record 9.5 million visitors. But the pandemic killed off hopes of a revival, and the number plummeted by 78% in 2020. To its critics, the government's handling of the pandemic captured its wider failings. Ahead of his decision to freeze parliament, President Saied ordered the army to take over management of the health crisis.
President Kais Saied thinks that Tunisia is still in a revolutionary phase and that the Tunisian people must achieve revolutionary objectives, which cannot be achieved unless through his measures. What we see here is the result of his course of action, the result of his form of governance, and the result of the parliamentary blockade form of governance.
Apart from the economic woes and the pandemic, President Kais Saied's decision to seize control of government, dismiss the premier, and suspend parliament has cast doubt over Tunisia's democracy, leaving many confused and wondering what's going to happen next. For now, amidst several arrests and confusion, the Tunisian president has promised he will not turn into a dictator and has rejected accusations that he staged a coup and is simply restoring order.
And now, when visually impaired sisters and mothers Reem and Elam Abdul Karim would first try to use their kitchens, their families would accompany them, saying it's unsafe for them to cook without supervision. Well, today, a cookbook that is specifically designed for their disability has come to the rescue. Take a look.
A cookbook that is specially designed for their disability has become a gateway for independence and self-sufficiency.
هو احنا بدأنا في الأول بالتعبير عن هوايات موجودة عندي وعند أختي وشريكتي إسراء.
My hobby is cooking. I would write the recipe cook it, and photograph it. I wanted it to be something unique that helps the community. If we put our finger on a problem that exists in the society and fix it, then we will be providing something special that has value.
The book is written in Braille and contains recipes and instructions that solely focus on the visually impaired's 4 main senses: touch, smell, hearing, and taste. For example, instead of watching water boil in a pan, users are told to wait and listen to the sound of simmering bubbles. Before finding the cookbook, I used to have to ask people to tell me what the color of the meat or the macaroni was. I would ask them if the sauce had 4 main senses and taste. For example, instead of watching water boiling, solely focus on the visually.
People living in some of Senegal's most arid regions are building circular gardens known as tulukers. It's part of Africa's Green Wall project, which is meant to improve food security and impede the Sahara Desert's steady advance. These Senegalese farmers are planting circular, drought-resistant gardens of edible and medicinal plants known as tuluker. Their purpose is multifold: reforestation, slowing desertification, and improving food security and livelihoods of the people living in the Sahel. This garden in Boki-Diawe, a border town of northeastern Senegal, is part of Africa's Great Green Wall project. It's an ambitious attempt to slow down the encroaching sand of the Sahara Desert by planting a 5,000-mile belt of trees across the length of the Sahel from Senegal to Djibouti.
So you see here, it's almost 100 papaya trees. Here you have the medicinal plants in the front row. The next 3 rows are dedicated to the vegetables and many more. So in the end, we have an island just here.
The African Union and international partners launched the Great Green Wall in 2007, but the project has since stalled. According to the United Nations estimates, 14 years in, only 4% of the pledged 247 million acres of trees have been planted. The scheme has also been criticized for its narrow focus on reforestation, neglecting other approaches that could better curb the economic impact desertification has had on local residents. In response, some organizers are shifting to different approaches, such as the Tuluker Gardens. Circular beds allow roots to grow inwards, trapping liquids and bacteria and improving water retention and composting.
This circular notion is strong. It's about permaculture because there is biodiversity, meaning that there are a number of species that are mixed. It allows you to reinforce the production without using chemicals. Therefore, it is the strength coming from the mix of species that allows the setup of permaculture.
For residents such as Musa Kamara, this project offers an opportunity to feed their families better.
The day people will realize the full potential of the Great Green Wall, they will stop these dangerous migration routes where you can lose your life at sea. This is a great opportunity. It's better to stay, work the soil, cultivate, and see what you can earn.
At one garden in the remote village of Walalde, the desert had already begun to reclaim the land, but most tulukers have flourished. According to the country's reforestation agency, in the 7 months since the project began, around 24 of them have sprouted throughout the country. And finally, on the program, they say love drives you to do crazy things. Well, here's one example. A Senegalese university student is in trouble for disguising himself as a woman to sit his girlfriend's school-leaving English paper. Images of Kadim Mbob dressed in women's clothes, including a red veil, have been shared widely on social media and news outlets in Senegal. The 22-year-old student, who was arrested over the weekend, said he was only acting out of love because his girlfriend was having difficulties in English. He was brought before a court on Monday on charges of identity theft and exam fraud alongside his girlfriend, who was accused of being complicit in the crime. Well, that's one weird way of showing your love. And that's the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Teniola Shuboale. Bye for now.